calling out garbage countries. Hopefully, Trump is able to get Ilhan Omar deported. Because here we are, America going above and beyond to help out these garbage countries, and he's not afraid to say it, that these countries are no good. Man, that took a while. The government was being defrauded, and we had to act like we cool with it. Nah. Let's take a look at Sunday morning with Maria Bartiromo talking about everything that's happening politically. Because what Trump is doing is on a whole nother level. To be able to talk in front of a camera with no fear and just say what everybody else is thinking, that these people are coming here from garbage countries telling us about our Constitution, how we should be acting, how we should be nice to them and give them all our money. I don't think so. Finally, we're at a place where we can be honest and put them in their place. Let's take a look. Sunday morning with Maria Bartiromo. Whew, it took a while, but we're here. Thank you, Trump.
Good Sunday morning, everyone. Welcome to Sunday Morning Futures. I'm Maria Bartiromo. Thanks so much for joining us. Today, President Trump's agenda at home and abroad, managing peace through strength overseas and tough love here at home, with tariffs sparking new domestic manufacturing. The president expected to embark on a cross-country trip to tout his economic policy wins as the big, beautiful bill takes effect in the new year, with tax cuts for citizens and new expensing for business, all expected to spark growth. Coming up, reaction from one of America's leading chief executives, JPMorgan Chase Chairman and CEO Jamie Dimon, on investing in national defense, the 2026 economy and AI, and Jack Smith's Arctic frost investigation. Plus, a manufacturing mecca with energy production power. President Trump's first stop on his economic trip, Pennsylvania. Senator Dave McCormick is here with reaction. Then satisfaction after the mobs came after this Democrat congressman hard when he spoke truth about Biden's wide open border.
I believe in legal migration. I don't believe in illegal migration. And as we've said in the past, if you have 100 people that ask for asylum, 10 to 12% are going to be accepted, and the other 90 to 88% are going to be rejected. So why are we letting everybody in?
Did that tough talk on the border bring him an indictment? Texas Democrat Congressman Henry Cuellar on President Trump's full and unconditional pardon for him and his wife, coming up. Also ahead, former Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy caught up in Jack Smith's dragnet with subpoenas sent to AT&T for his phone records. The former California Congressman and Speaker of the House lives to talk about it with details for us coming up. It's all right here, right now on Sunday Morning Futures.
All right, let's take a look.
And we begin this Sunday morning with America's economic security is national security. The Trump administration releasing its annual national security strategy report, highlighting threats from China and Russia, while also leveling criticism at NATO allies, including Europe, which the administration says will be unrecognizable in the coming 20 years if the current open migration policy continues to erode national identities. The report questioning, quote, whether certain European countries will have economies and militaries strong enough to remain reliable allies. Many of these nations are currently doubling down on their present path, unquote. The president using tariffs, defense deals, and personal diplomacy abroad, while pushing tax cuts, deregulation, and a manufacturing and energy renaissance here at home. This upcoming week, the president is expected to begin an economic road trip to tout his affordability and economic policy successes as corporate America increasingly partners with the Trump administration on issues over national security. And joining me now from the Reagan National Defense Forum in Simi Valley, California, at the Reagan Library, is the chairman and CEO of JPMorgan Chase, Jamie Dimon. Jamie, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Maria, I'm thrilled to be here.
And it's great to be able to talk with you from the Reagan Defense Forum about this big news that your company released recently, that you've launched a $1.5 trillion security and resiliency initiative to boost critical industries. Tell me a little about what your objective is here and what industries you deem as most important for the U.S. economy that you'd like to invest in.
Right. So, it's become pretty obvious, particularly since the invasion of Ukraine, that national security is critical, not just for us, but for a lot of countries. And if you had any illusion the world was going to be peaceful for the rest of our lives, hopefully it was shattered. And, at that point, people realized, I heard from military officers, I heard from companies, we didn't have enough production capability to make the bombs that we needed to ship. We had rare earths. You've already heard about the rare earth problem. We rely on China. And it's not just about China, but we rely on single parties for things we need for F-35s and nuclear submarines. And we rely on China for something like 90% of the ingredients go into our pharmaceuticals and 90% of our penicillin. And again, it's not all about China. It's about the United States needs to have security and resiliency about things for security that we can rely on. This year we said, what can J.P. Morgan do? So it's literally, and we broke it out into 27 very detailed categories. So it's rare earths, of which there are many, by the way. It's lithium. It's the medical ingredients. It's drones. It's satellites. It's cyber. It's even education in some cases about what we need to do to get the workforce. In some cases, just having the backup resiliency.
And Jamie, of course, this weekend at the Defense Forum, China is going to be one of the key topics there. I want to get your take on how you're managing things, of course, as one of the most important banks in the world, J.P. Morgan, certainly in America. How do you manage the China threat?
Now, if you look at what we're doing in China, we bank, I think, 3,000 multinationals in China. So these are a lot of companies, some of whom are going to be here, and so we kind of have clients, this network of clients. We try to be very careful, but, we're not going to violate American national security policy.
Would you walk away from a deal, from an IPO, if you felt that that company was assisting the People's Liberation Army?
Well, it depends what you mean by assisting the People's Liberation Army, but the answer is, would we walk away from a deal? Absolutely. We don't have to chase any deal or any client, something like that. But then you have to define assisting. Is that food, sneakers, or is it military equipment? So if it's assisting military equipment, absolutely. And presumably that would be on the sanction list of the United States government. If it's something that's kind of innocuous, no, we're not going to walk away from that company. The United States government decided that we should, then we would. And I should point out, our government is fully engaging with China. And, I appreciate that. They should engage. We shouldn't be afraid of them. I'm not afraid of China. I think what we need to do is make sure we're secure.
And Jamie, obviously, national security is economic security and vice versa. I want to get your take on what your sense is of the 2026 economy, what to expect in the year ahead. What is your sense of the broader macro story for the year ahead, Jamie?
So I'll give you short-term and long-term, though. In the short run, it looks like the American consumer is doing fine, is chugging along, companies are making profits, stock markets are high, and that could easily continue. There are a little small negatives, like jobs are weakening, but just a little bit. Inflation is there and maybe not going down.
We're just coming off of the longest shutdown in history. And of course, the Securities and Exchange Commission was shut down. I wonder what kind of an impact that had on IPOs, on capital markets businesses for you.
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to say the shutdowns are stupid. They damage America. They shouldn't happen. And we got to figure a way not to have these things happen. You can blame Democrats, Republicans. Their intramurals are damaging 300 million Americans. And I think that's just dead wrong for any reason. So what did it do with IPOs? Well, IPOs basically stopped for, 30 days or whatever it was. But the markets are wide open. The IPO backlog is huge. The debt backlog is huge. The M&A backlog is huge. Yes, they're all going to come. But I'll give you a proviso. Pipelines are like accordions. They open and close. So whenever people ask us, the investor community asks us, what's the pipeline? I say, well, I'll tell you the pipeline, but don't assume that it closes. If the markets get south, if we go into recession, those things can close pretty quickly.
Jamie, what's your sense of jobs? Because here I think there's a little more nuance to the story. It's not just about the macro story. Now you've got to look at artificial intelligence and the fact that AI is creating efficiencies to the extent that it is cutting jobs. What is your plan to ensure that Americans are ready for this new revolution that's underway with AI?
Yeah. So I think before you do AI, jobs have gotten a little weaker, wages have gotten a little weaker. And when you talk to businesses, they're going to be a little more cautious hiring. That's not because of AI. That's just because they want to do more with less, and they look at their order books, et cetera. And look, I don't think AI is going to dramatically reduce jobs like unbelievably next year. And for the most part, AI is going to do great stuff for mankind, like tractors did, like fertilizers did, like vaccines did. It'll save lives. We'll be working. Maybe one day we'll be working less hard, but having wonderful lives. So it'll cure a lot of cancers. It'll have composite materials. Now, of course, it needs to be properly regulated. There are downsides to AI, just like there are to airplanes, pharmaceuticals, cars. All things get used by bad people. So assuming that the government figured out some way to put guardrails around AI, but it will eliminate jobs. That doesn't mean that people won't have other jobs. My advice to people would be, critical thinking. Learn skills, learn your EQ, learn how to be good at a meeting, how to communicate, how to write. You'll have plenty of jobs. And if it does happen too fast for society, which is possible, we can't assimilate all those people that quickly. Like if you look at, what happened in farms and the internet and electricity, it took a while. This may be a little bit longer, and it'll be a little harder to assimilate people. If we can't, we government and we the companies, society should look at how do we phase it in a way that we don't damage a lot of people. Like we should have done a little bit more on trade assistance years ago when you had a town that got damaged by the closure of a plant. And that you can do. You can, retrain people, relocate people, income assistance, early retirement. And the next job may be a better job, but they have to learn how to do the job. And as you know, skills are, you can earn quite a bit of money with skills. If you look at this year, you have a huge amount of construction that needs to take place. And to do that construction, you need roads and trucks and drivers. You need servers, you need fiber, you need all that. So it's going to cause probably more jobs in the short run in total.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the fact that we're going to need more electricians and plumbers. And like you said, those trade schools. But Jamie, I guess what I'm asking is, are we going to see any return on investment on all this money anytime soon? I mean, Jensen Huang told me that we're talking about.
And let me say this much. AI doesn't have an identity. Like, you can't blame AI when something goes wrong. And that's why we always need somebody on top taking responsibility for the decisions made. Like, the company's going to do such and such thing or whatever actions. Well, the person who made the decision is in charge of that and will take all the blame. While AI, you can't blame AI for anything. It's just a computer program. So it's going to be a while before people lose their jobs. We're going to need people that take the responsibility. Think about that. So AI is not there yet.
Trillions of dollars every year going into the build out of data centers. I mean, look at all these data centers that we have actually seen built in America. I mean, at this point, we've got about 5,000 data centers that have built for AI. When you add up all this money, all this trillions of dollars, where's the return on investment, Jamie?
So I think I heard, I haven't read it yet, but I heard we did a research report about how much. It's $5 trillion, and that includes everything: the data centers, the servers, the chips, the fiber. It doesn't necessarily include the power plant or the transmission lines. And then we were going through today, like where's the money going to come from? Public, private credit, specialized type of finance, asset-backed securities. There will be big winners. You remember out of the internet, you got Google and Facebook and Amazon and tons of others and whole new technologies. But it took a while for some other things to come in, like the iPhone or something. So here it will eventually pay off.
Look, Jamie, before you go, I've got to ask you about the special counsel, the former special counsel, Jack Smith, and that Arctic frost investigation, Jamie, because we had Devin Nunes on this program, former chairman of the Intelligence Committee, who said your bank was subpoenaed to give his bank records up, and he was upset about it. Here's what he said on this program just a few weeks ago. Watch this.
When the Arctic frost went after our bank records at Trump Media, That's inexplicable because we didn't exist. So what reason did they have to go after us? And I've seen Jamie Dimon and others at JP Morgan say this over and over again, that they don't debank people for political reasons. Well, then why the hell did you debank Trump Media?
Jamie, what do you want to say about that? Did you send over the bank records of Devin Nunes or Trump supporters to the special counsel when he wanted that information?
People have to grow up here, okay, and stop making up things and stuff like that. So, and I can't talk about an individual account. We do not debank people's religious or political affiliations. We do debank them. They have religious and political affiliation. We debank people who are Democrats. We debank people who are Republicans. We've debanked different religious folks. Never was that for that reason. And that's number one. Number two is I don't like debanking people. We live under very strict rules and regulations and requirements, and to protect the country, and we have to report things to the government. We're required to report things to the government. I can't even tell you when we do it because I'm not going to tell you that either. And so I want to change these rules. I actually applaud the Trump administration who's trying to say the debanking's bad and we should change the rules. Well, damn it, I've been asking to change the rules now for 15 years. So change the rules. And, and that's why a lot of this stuff takes place. It is really customer unfriendly. And, we're debanking people because of suspected things or negative media or all these various things. So, and the last thing, which is really important, we don't give information to the government just because they ask. We're subpoenaed. We're required by court to give it to the government. And I've been following subpoenas with this administration, the last administration, the administration before that, and the one before that. And I don't agree with a lot of the government does a lot of things that get angry at banks. So let's just take a deep breath and fix the problems as opposed to blame someone who's put in that position. So and we've been quite clear about this. We've given recommendations to the government how they can fix it, how we can change the rules and regulations to dramatically reduce reporting and debanking and things like that. And I would tell the government, if we see something that might possibly be bad, we'll report it to you and you decide. Why do we have to decide? Right. And that's the position we're put in.
I mean, as someone who's covered global business for so many years and now covers politics as well as policy so closely, I have a problem with, the special counsel taking advantage of corporate America to use corporate America to do their dirty work. Because it wasn't just the banks. It was also the telecom companies. Don't forget, they sent subpoenas to Verizon and AT&T to get phone records of Trump supporters. I mean, a political witch hunt. So that's why I think our viewers, want to understand how this happens.
Yeah, well, that is not me. That's your courts and the government and stuff like that. But the government, Democratic and Republican governments have come after us both. So let's not act like this is just one side doing this. This has been going on for a long time, and we should stop, militarizing the government that kind of way.
White House National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett with me on Mornings with Maria on Fox Business Friday, with expectations of 4% productivity and economic growth of between 3 and 4% in the first half of the new year, as the big beautiful bill and its new tax policy take effect. But even with some $18 trillion of new investment into America on President Trump's watch this year, and inflation plummeting from Joe Biden's 40-year highs, Americans are feeling financially stressed, according to recent polling. And the Democrats are jumping on the affordability theme heading into the midterm elections. President Trump is set to travel the country throughout the coming weeks to communicate how his policies are reining in inflation and creating opportunities and economic growth. The president's first stop will be in Pennsylvania on Tuesday. And joining me now in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive is Pennsylvania Senator Dave McCormick. Senator, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Good morning.
Are you expecting to be with the president on Tuesday? And what are you expecting the president's messages to be?
Well, I'm hoping to be with him. And I was just in Pennsylvania the last 3 days, in that part of the Pennsylvania, the northeastern part. And listen, I think the message is that we inherited a train wreck from the Biden administration, out of control inflation, an enormous regulatory state, real wage growth hadn't kept up. And we've made a lot of progress in the last 12 months with the president's agenda. Inflation is about half of what it was on average during the Biden administration. Real wage growth exceeds the inflation numbers, and you've got all sorts of things that we did right out of the gate, which is putting money in the pockets of working families, whether it's the child care tax credit or no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. So we've made a lot of progress, but there's a lot more work to do. And I think the president will lay out that agenda and how all the policies that he's put in place are going to help working families. And there's more to come, particularly in deregulation and in energy dominance.
Yeah, and I want to talk about what's to come, but let me stay on what your expectations are in the first half of the new year, because you heard Kevin Hassett. He's talking about he said, if we get 3% growth, I'll be disappointed. He's talking about 3 to 4% economic growth in the first half, largely because of the impact of the big, beautiful bill. What do you believe to be the most impactful from that legislation in the new year?
Well, first, I think of the economy as a sailboat, and we got wind at our backs with the big, beautiful bill, the accelerated depreciation, the money going into people's pockets, but also the certainty. You know, CEOs like certainty that allows them to invest. The second thing is all this trillions of dollars of investment that have come into the country, into Pennsylvania, whether it's Nippon or Hanwha or all the money that's coming in for AI and energy infrastructure. That's a huge boon. And then the final thing is deregulation. I think that's just starting to have an impact. We're going to see, I think, the biggest deregulatory agenda since Reagan's first term in 1981. All those things are going to push us forward. I think Kevin Hassett is right that we're going to see a big pop in growth, and I think that's going to be great for working families across Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and Jamie Dimon mentioned that. We're going to play that portion of regulation and the impact of all of that tomorrow on Mornings with Maria on Fox Business. But I think it's really interesting to see President Trump target different areas of the economy. This most favored nation status with healthcare prices was very powerful. The fact that he was able to get pharmaceutical companies to agree to take their prices down and break into that bureaucracy there. What are you expecting from the Obamacare subsidies? They're expiring in just a couple of weeks. And what are you expecting in terms of the cost of health care in the new year?
Well, that step by the president on drugs was fantastic. And when I campaigned last year, that was one of the many things on the minds of Pennsylvanians is how outrageous those prices were. But listen, we got to start with the Affordable Care Act. 15 years ago, it had 3 goals: better quality, increased access, and lower cost. It's been a miserable, cataclysmic failure on all fronts. We are 3 times more expensive per person than any healthcare system in the world. 25 million people don't have access, and the quality is very mixed, including one of the highest morbidity rates in the world for a developed country. So it's been a disaster. And the Democrats, and by the way, it's a disaster that now we and Republicans and Democrats have to work on to fix together for the American people. The Democrats are engaged in theater right now. They're putting forward this week a 3-year extension of those subsidies from COVID. What that essentially means is a family that is making $500,000 a year continues to get a COVID subsidy. It's automatic enrollment, which is a giveaway to the insurance companies and allows for fraud. So I'm not in favor of that, and I think it's a ridiculous political stunt. I do think we need to address this issue, particularly for working families. So I'd be in favor of some sort of limited extension that reformed those and help us get to the point where we can do the work that's required to really reform our healthcare system. It's one of my biggest fears, and I think it's the thing that Pennsylvanians feel lurking over their shoulder is this enormous risk and this enormous cost of healthcare.
Well, you say that the Democrats are involved in theater in terms of this issue. I find it really compelling, the fact that President Trump came into office and all he talked about was getting prices down, from 40-year highs of inflation. And yet the Democrats have been able to grab around this issue of affordability, this new buzzword going into the midterm elections, and act as if it's their issue and not the Republicans' issue. They're better marketers, obviously.
Well, listen, we inherited a train wreck from the policies of the Biden administration. It's going to take some time to unwind those, but make no mistake, by any metric, the economy has gotten better for working families over the last 12 months. And it's also true, we have a lot more work to do. And I think the president feels that, he's willing to shake things up, whether it's negotiating these deals with pharmaceutical companies or really going at some of the true costs of inflation. And we need to deal with that to help the working families of Pennsylvania that put him and me into office.
Well, we should point out that we will also likely see lower interest rates in the new year as the president names a new chairman of the Federal Reserve. Senator, we look forward to seeing you with the president on Tuesday in Pennsylvania. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Senator Dave McCormick. Quick break, and then President Trump issues a pardon for one of Joe Biden's most vocal critics of his open border policy, and he's a Democrat. Texas Democrat Congressman Henry Cuellar says he was punished for his stance on the wide open border. He will join me on Biden's Department of Justice, targeting him and his wife while sounding the alarm over the millions of illegal border crossers. That's next. Stay with us.
He's a respected person. He was treated very badly because he said that people should not be allowed to pour into our country. And he was right. And as soon as he made that statement, I then said, I'll bet he gets indicted. And that's what happened.
And that's President Trump on why he issued a full and unconditional pardon for Texas Democrat Congressman Henry Cuellar and his wife Imelda, after both were indicted last year by Biden's Department of Justice on 14 counts of bribery, conspiracy, and money laundering. The couple has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing and have accused the Biden administration of weaponizing the Justice Department. Cuellar, whose district sits right on the Rio Grande, which was one of the busiest regions with illegal crossers. Take a look at these pictures. He was one of Joe Biden's fiercest critics over the former president's open border policy, which saw more than 10 million people cross the nation's borders illegally. President Trump will say it's 20 million, in addition to millions of gotaways and hundreds of others who were actually on the U.S.'s terrorist watch list. Joining me now in the Sunday Morning Futures exclusive is the man himself, Texas Congressman Henry Cuellar. Congressman, thanks so much for being here. Congratulations on the pardon.
Thank you so much, and it's so good talking to you again.
And do you believe that you were indicted because of your criticism of Biden's open border?
Absolutely. The president was right. And I, now looking at all the evidence and looking at everything, definitely I feel that I was weaponized. You know, they used the department to go after myself and my family. And I'll tell you something, Murray, if they want to come after me because I was a critic about open borders, that's one thing. But you don't bring the family in. You just don't do that. You don't, as a prosecutor, you just don't do that type of situation.
Well, okay, I want to talk about the weaponization because this audience knows all about the Democrats' weaponization of government. But first, let's hit on what they accused you of. The Justice Department under Joe Biden said that you were acting as a foreign agent to advance the interests of the Azerbaijani government. Federal authorities indicted you and your wife in May of 2024 on 14 counts, including bribery, conspiracy, and money laundering. You've consistently denied any wrongdoing, but tell me what went on between you and the Azerbaijani government.
Yeah, look, let me say this, first of all, we're innocent, and we have looked at all the evidence that got provided through discovery. We were even allowed to see the grand jury testimony. That doesn't happen very frequently, and we saw that, and not a single person that testified, and I'll emphasize this, not a single person said there was a quid pro quo. In fact, they failed at showing that quid pro quo. And Maria, they even went and did a sting operation, a separate sting operation to try to bribe me, and that failed. And what they did there was wrong. So again, no quid pro quo from any of the evidence, from any of the individuals, and therefore they.
It's crazy how they were wrong on so many things, but yet we're able to convict him. I mean, what does that say about our justice system?
Even attempted a sting operation where they were trying to entrap me, and that failed.
Wow. Entrapment, bribery. Congressman, tell me specifically who tried to bribe you. You mean Biden's DOJ tried to bribe you?
Yes, they did. We got all the testimony, the 302s, the sting operation. They set up a false company, false account. They took out money. We saw all this. They took out the money, and they said this money was to bribe me. They try to use this money. They talked to my DC staff. My DC staff told them no, there was nothing there. So they actually returned the money back to the account because they couldn't bribe me. So the Biden administration, they tried to entrap me and try to bribe me, and that failed. And this is very significant because one more thing, everything came in from the DOJ in DC. Everything came from the DOC office there. The local office, that is the one in Houston, never got enough. And from my sources, they did not get involved because they felt there was not a case, and they said, we're not going to get involved. The Houston office said, we're not going to get involved. It's all the DOJ people in Washington, D.C. There's a lot more. And I have talked to Jim Jordan, and I've asked Jim Jordan, I want to sit down with y'all because I think y'all need to investigate those prosecutors, and you need to investigate their supervisors also.
And of course, that's what the judiciary and Jim Jordan is doing, investigating all of this. Look, Congressman, if this is true, this is not the first time that the Democrats have used dirty political tricks against their political rivals. I mean, you can go back to the Russia collusion made-up story by Hillary Clinton's team, to two impeachments of Trump, 90-plus indictments against Trump, a raid on Mar-a-Lago. So all of this shows you that you've got leadership in the Democrat Party who will stoop at anything. Lows, they don't care how low to go to take you down. Why are you still part of the Democrat Party? Have you considered switching parties?
Look, I'm a Democrat. I'm probably one of the most, if not the most, bipartisan Democrat. And as I told some of my Republican friends on the House floor, I vote better than some of the Republicans in the Republican caucus, and they agree with me. I just feel that, you know, I follow the words of President LBJ, where he said many years ago, I'm an American, I'm a Texan, and I'm a Democrat, in that order. And I think anybody that puts party before their country is doing a disservice to their country.
Okay, but President Trump is out with a new Truth Social today on your decision to run again as a Democrat. And the president is saying, oh, well, next time, no more Mr. Nice Guy. He's talking about the fact that you are going to continue to work with the same radical left Democrats. What do you want to say about the president's Truth Social this morning?
Well, again, let me just say this. I was at church this morning with my wife. I prayed for the president. I prayed for his family. And I prayed for the presidency, because if the president succeeds, the country succeeds. And again, as probably the most bipartisan individual, I don't vote party. I vote for what's right for the country. And in fact, you know, when I got that raid by the Biden administration, they did it 40 days before a primary, where the far left had spent we're spending total about $20 million that we know of on that. So they did this right before that. So again, I am a conservative Democrat, but I will work with the president. I've reached out to his administration. I've told them, you know, name the folks, you know, Tom Homan, Christie, other folks that say, hey, can we sit down? I'd love to sit down and see what we can find common ground. I sit on defense appropriations. I sit on homeland appropriations. And if I can work and find common ground, then I certainly want to do that.
Well, with all due respect, did you vote for the government shutdown? Okay. We've spoken with John Fetterman many times on this program, and he, like yourself, is moderate and in the middle and does not vote about party, but votes for the American people and votes for the issues that matter. So I ask you, how much pressure do your colleagues put on you? Fetterman told me that even though he is voting for the American people and doing his job, he feels, quote unquote, isolated. How do you feel? How does the Democrat leadership treat you now that you've been talking about the open border, have been friendly with President Trump?
Well, listen, you know, do I have some on the far left that are not happy with me? Of course not. But I think the general Democrat caucus and I, you know, we get along. But they know that I'm an independent voice. They know, you know, I was one of the 6 that opened up, voted to Democrats that voted up to open up the government. I sit in appropriations. I do want to say that the CR that was put out there, I think it was 91 pages, 64, 65 pages. didn't have anything to do with the CR or appropriations. I just want to have an input on appropriations.
Of course. Congressman, it's great to have you this morning. We'll be following your work, and we so appreciate your leadership and courage, sir. Thank you.
Sell out.
Look forward to being with you again. Have a good morning.
And to you, Henry Cuellar joining us. Quick break, and then former special counsel Jack Smith is set to testify behind closed doors in front of the House Judiciary Committee about his investigation into President Trump and his allies, along with his subpoenas sent out to get phone and bank data of Trump allies. Kevin McCarthy, the 55th Speaker of the House, was among the lawmakers that was tracked in Jack Smith's wide web. He will join me with reaction and the details. Stay with us.
I want to bring in Jack Smith, ask him all kinds of questions, and not the least of which is this whole idea that he was going after what appears to be almost half the stinking Republicans in Congress getting their phone logs and a bunch of other Americans.
And that's the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, with me on Mornings with Maria on Fox Business Thursday on his subpoena for former special counsel Jack Smith to testify behind closed doors about his investigation into President Trump and Trump's supporters. Among those who were caught up in the wide net cast by Smith was my next guest, former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. Smith allegedly sought the personal cell phone records of McCarthy from AT&T, which they ultimately said they did not turn over, but they actually did. Meanwhile, a top federal court official is defending Judge James Boasberg's decision to issue gag orders that hid subpoenas in connection with the FBI's Arctic Frost probe. The official, Robert Conrad Jr., said in a letter to Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley that Washington's chief federal judge was likely unaware that the subpoenas were directed at members of Congress. Joining me now with more on all of this is the man himself, the 55th Speaker of the House, former California Congressman Kevin McCarthy. Speaker, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Great to see you, Maria.
And it was just a little while, was it a couple of weeks after you became the Speaker of the House, the highest Republican in the nation, okay, the Speaker of the House, was it just a few days later or weeks later after you were sworn in that you were actually tracked by Democrats?
Yeah, we're just learning. The weaponization went beyond just trying to go after President Trump. It went after all Republicans. And remember, when they went after my phone number, my phone log, they didn't tell AT&T it was my phone. They didn't tell me. They didn't tell anybody else. And they just went to try to find all. They went much further and longer duration than they asked for the senators' phones as well. Now we're finding out they also went after Jim Jordan's phone. They would go after any political enemy they thought was out there. It's the true weaponization of government. And we're just now getting this information. And when we first found out about, thanks to Senator Grassley and Senator Johnson and what Jim Jordan has been working on, AT&T said, no, they didn't provide my phone number, but they did give the phone logs we find out now. But the first question is, what crime did all these Republicans actually propose to have committed? Just being a Republican, being the leader in the House, the Speaker of the House? That's what they wanted to go after my phone log for?
That's unbelievable. And I know that at some point AT&T said, no, we didn't do what Verizon did. We pushed back and said, look, we're not going to get involved in this. But you're saying, in fact, they did send over the phone records of your number, even though they didn't know it was your number.
At the very beginning, they said they did not do that because they thought they caught themselves. Because normally if someone went after someone's phone log, they'd have to show proof. There'd have to be some reason why you broke some crime. They wanted to investigate you. And they'd say your name. Jack Smith on purpose would not say my name, just give my phone number out. And as we're watching from the judge, there was no indication why to go after me. Simply that I was the leader of the Republican Party. I had become Speaker, the highest elected at the time for Republicans, and they wanted to go after my phone log.
Unbelievable.
What, they want to look at every constituent that called me, every leader that I talked to, every other Republican or Democrat I talked to, or any foreign leader I talked to. They thought they had a right to try to track us and understand whatever we were doing. First, let's find out why Jack would do that. The weaponization of taking this government and going after business to go and spy on Americans.
Yeah. Kevin, real quick, do you believe this is the right forum for Jack Smith? I mean, how is he going to explain himself? Is it right that he should be behind private doors, or do you provide? I know in a public hearing, each lawmaker only has 5 minutes, so it's limited.
Well, I want to get to the information. So if it's behind closed doors, I trust in Jim Jordan. Let's get all that information, but let's not this be the only hearing. Let's bring a number of hearings out, but we've got to get all the information because we know now that the Biden administration tried to hide everything.
Unbelievable. All right, let's take a short break. I want to continue this conversation, and I also want to get your take on this affordability issue. We're talking with the former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. We'll be right back on Sunday morning.
So it's obvious that the only way this country works if we hold it accountable, right? They go ahead and break the law and do all these crazy shit, and nobody calls it out. Just like immigration. Now it's being revealed that Somalians migrating to America, they're stealing billions from our country. And here you go, that Senator Omar criticizing America. And I love the fact that Trump is saying, go back to your country. Go fix your constitution. Like, why are you just bitching and moaning about America? Insane. So we have the right guy as president, holding down the front, making sure that everything is working smoothly. Come on now. By the way, my name is Noel. If you're just tuning in, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Just bring you the news, what needs to be said. Because for so many years, politicians were so scared of saying the truth. Like, why do we have all these immigrants coming to this country talking about our constitution, about how we treat people? Like, go back to your country. Solve your shit. Don't criticize our country. So I love the fact that hopefully Omar, the Senator Omar, Ilhan Omar, gets deported. Go back to your country and complain about America from over there. Get a video camera over there in your country and talk about America. Go ahead. Man, we're living in some great time. We got to get deported. All right. Before we move on, let me just go over the chats. Thank you for those of you who wrote down comments. Here's the first one. Who do we have here? PEMDAS. Ask him if he funded Epstein. So who? We're talking about Trump? That Epstein files got to go. That's all they got against Trump. The Epstein files. So did Trump fund Epstein? Let's leave that on the past, man. There's an island, and at the end of the day, the Democrats look worse under the Epstein files. So think about that. They got themselves in trouble trying to get Trump shut down. What else we got? He didn't answer her questions. Right? That guy that was talking didn't answer her question. He kept running around and saying that he's a Democrat, a true Democrat, blah, blah, blah. And it's like Trump just pardoned you. A Republican Trump just pardoned a Democrat. And you're still going to go with Democratic talking point in the Democratic narrative? I love the fact that Trump said, no more Mr. Nice Guy. You know, that goes to show Trump goes above and beyond, helping others, and people got to look at that and help him out, help the country out. What else we have here? Devin Nunes said Trump media was debanked. Yeah, you know, they have a problem with the money, and you know, that was back in the cancellation days where people would get canceled, bank accounts would get canceled, and everything seemed okay to get canceled. Nobody complained. But again, nobody expected Trump to be on board, and now everything's coming up to light. We don't do that. Right? For no good reason. Right? Now, thank God we got the bravest president on earth. Everything is dangerous for President Trump, but he doesn't care about his political what's it called? Political stance. Like, if you're not going to vote for him, he's not running for anything anyway. So he could do and say whatever he wants. I love the fact that Trump is not afraid. Like, every time he talks, he says, you know what? This might end my political career, but so what? And then he says it. Gotta give the man a shout out for that. All right. Here we go. Not a good idea to have President Trump traveling. And you know what? This is the president of the United States, the toughest security on earth. Like, whenever he's going to another country, they send in agents, Secret Service agents, like I think it's 2 months in advance to clear the area and make sure that everything is safe for Trump to head over there. So 2 months ahead of time, that is the best security imaginable. So thank God Trump is now being protected more than anything. But this guy is now going to run as a Democrat after Trump pardoned him. Yeah, that's what I said earlier. Unbelievable. The guy doesn't just say, okay, the Democratic Party, there's a problem with it. We need to wake up. The extreme left has taken over the Democratic Party. And the best thing he could do is become a Republican to wake people up to the fact that there is a problem with the Democratic Party. They think that their narrative and their talking points from back in the days still work. And now with social media exposing them and spilling out the truth, those talking points don't work anymore. It's truly unbelievable. You know? What else we have here? Texas Democrats, unbelievable. He chooses to stay a Democrat. It really is unbelievable, man. Run as a Democrat after they put him in prison for wanting safe borders. And you know, that goes to show that they don't really have a talking point. They don't really know how to switch it up, how to change the conversation, how to change the narrative, and point out the truth. Point out the fact that there's a problem and we need to get away from this. This is not helping anyone. I think little by little, hopefully more and more people will wake up for the Democratic Party and just walk away from it until they fix their narrative. Oh, I just missed what you said. Sorry about that. What else we have here? These Democrats that pretend their toxic colleagues, over 90%, are unimportant when deciding to be a Democrat now. It's really unbelievable. My dogs are barking. I don't know why they're barking. They're always barking. God bless their heart. Let me just go to these last two messages. I agree. The Dems are definitely in the Epstein file. So if you're trying to look for a problem with Trump being on the Epstein file, what you're really going to find is that there's more Democrats on there than Republicans. All right. I don't trust U.S. security in U.S. for President Trump. I think for candidate Trump, the U.S. security wasn't that good. But now, as the president, the man in charge of the military, the ultimate gun, he is the one in charge, and I got to trust him. And he's doing a great job firing and getting rid of all the bad people in office. You know, lifelong politicians or people that work for the government who thinks they're the ones that run the government. He's getting rid of all of them. So this is the best time to be the president. And not only that, also like this cabinet, getting all the people that are on board with his message, that are on board with his ideas, with what he wants to do. So everything got put together perfectly. I'm kind of glad that he lost 2020 because those 4 years give him an opportunity and a chance to bring all the great people together. So when he wins in 2024, he goes into the presidency on a run, just accomplishing his goals one after the other, after the other, after the other. Man, we're living in some great times. I think the next step is the midterms. If Republicans take over, if Democrats take over, then there's a problem with the messaging. There's something we got to work on. Because the first thing the Democrats are going to try to do is mess up Trump's agenda, Trump's plan, and just get him all into fighting his impeachment. I think that's the first thing they're going to try to do. That's all they know. Trump derangement syndrome, getting rid of Trump. That's all they know. Instead of putting together policies that is going to help anybody. Insane. You know, the Democrats, they need the illegals for voters. And that's another thing. The Somalians, they're getting rid of all of them. They're all getting deported. That means voters are getting deported, you know? As the voters are leaving due to their anti-American policies. More and more people are waking up. Their policies suck. You go move into a Democratic state, and it's the worst case scenario. You got to fight for your life, literally fight for your life. Like the common people. I mean, not the elites, not the millionaires, those live in gated communities. We're talking about regular working people. Got to not only pay all the bills and pay everything, but they have to survive. And with all the illegal immigrants that are not being vetted, a lot of them or some of them are criminals and they get away with everything. Yeah, my dog is barking in the background. Sorry about that. Kind of makes me want to stop recording and going over there handling it. I got two puppies, a Shih Tzu and a Pomeranian. One of them is going to go away, and then life should be a little better. But yeah, back to the Democrats. I think all they do is import migrants, turn those illegal migrants into voters by letting them become Americans. And that's a strategy that needs to stop. They need to lose. It needs to move on. You know? More and more people are waking up to the reality that all these illegals are just being brought in as voters or future voters. No good for the country. Yes, lucky now as FIFA, World Cup, Winter Olympics, etc. with President Trump. Yes, I think Trump won like a peace nomination or a peace prize from FIFA, you know? And that was nice. Trump went in there, got a medal and an award. Something that they should give him with the Nobel Peace Prize, because the man is bringing peace around the world. And I want to see once he gets the Ukraine versus Russia peace deal through, it's going to be amazing. Can't wait to record that. All right. All right. One last message here. We aren't stupid out here. We are right, though. The crooked Democrats left, the extreme left. You know, and there's the far left. They're the one holding down the narrative, the Democratic narrative. They're the one pushing forward the different policies that are just wrong. All right? There's a lot of good people in the Democratic Party, but unfortunately, the extreme left are just destroying the Democratic Party. And they want to, like, give rights to the world. Like free healthcare to the world, free money to the world, free everything. It is really sad. All right, with that said, let me step out. Shout out to Pamela 3023, leaving comments. Everybody else, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. My name is Noel. I'm trying to just record as much as possible and bring out information with no fear of getting canceled. You know, a lot of people back in the days when I was working, I always had the fear of losing my job. So therefore, just keep my mouth shut. But now with podcasting, let's just put it all out there. The fact is, the Democratic left are to be feared, and everybody should walk away from that party. And let's embrace the fact that we got the best president ever. Unafraid of saying the truth, pointing out the truth that the Somali party, they got to go. Not Somali party. Somalians got to go back to the country. Good luck with that. Leave us Americans alone. With that said, see you in the next video. Peace. I'm out.
Herbal Online.